Very much for calling this hearing and for the extraordinary array of witnesses who have depth and knowledge about what is going on in the Arctic. I'm going to try to be brief, but I'm not sure I can accomplish that. There's no doubt that the Arctic is warming, and the climate is creating new opportunities and significant challenges for the federal government, especially for the U.S. Coast Guard. The retreat of sea ice, the opening of previously impassable Arctic waters, and the insatiable demands of a growing global human population will create tremendous competition and pressure among the Arctic and non-Arctic nations to access and develop the untapped natural resources of this nearly pristine region above the Arctic Circle. As our country's sole military maritime law enforcement services, inevitably it will fall upon the Coast Guard to protect the U.S. sovereign interest in the Arctic. Moreover, when called upon, I am confident the Coast Guard will do the best it can with the assets and resources available at its disposal. There's no reason to think otherwise. Certainly that's the history of the Coast Guard. What does raise concern, however, is whether the Coast Guard, or for that matter, the entire federal government, is adequately prepared for the inevitable. From what I have read in today's testimony, it would appear that the federal government is not, neither is the Coast Guard. If anything, the federal government appears to have been far too complacent, if not negligent, in establishing a solid foothold for the bona fide federal presence along what will be a vast and mostly inhospitable fourth U.S. coast. The challenges cannot and should not be underestimated, nor the days of empty bromides and recalcitrant comments by many simply have to end. The Coast Guard prides itself on being siempre paratus, or always ready. At present, however, that motto appears to be more aspirational than operational reality. Consequently, the hearing provides an opportunity to establish a baseline of information that we can return to and reassess in future hearings. We need answers to several important questions, such as, is the Coast Guard's recapitalization of its polar icebreaker fleet on schedule? And for that matter, what about the Coast Guard's other capital needs to ensure mission performance in the Arctic, such as ports and facilities? Has the Coast Guard begun to process and revising its concept of operations in the Arctic to address all the mission needs, especially the maritime domain awareness, search and rescue, and oil spill response? Moreover, are the other federal agencies, particularly NOAA and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, aggressively moving ahead with plans to ensure the availability of deep water ports, accurate navigational tools, and communications and telecommunications in the Arctic? These are just a few of the many questions that we have. Let me conclude by saying that we cannot afford to ignore what is unfolding in the Arctic. As a maritime power and Arctic state, the United States must embrace this challenge, for if not, rest assured, other nation states, friend and foe alike, will fill the vacuum. I don't see Mr. Graves here yet. He held a very important meeting yesterday, and I want to thank him for putting that meeting together. The result of that meeting is that the U.S. Navy specifically is not prepared to deal in what is really an ocean, although often covered by ice. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Thank the